Okay. Hello, everybody. We're live with the Arrrgh Booked Book Club, and this is the live show for Future Home of the Living God by Louise Erdrich. And this was my first adult book by this author, and it was an interesting introduction. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts, Tanya, because I'm still processing what is my rating? I don't know yet. I'm hovering between a 3 and a 4.
I got real mad at the end.
So yeah, same. I closed the book and I was like, what?
Yeah, I got real mad. I was like, I was very, very invested. And I feel like, I don't know, you hit a deadline? I don't know what happened.
Right. It ended way too abruptly for me. And I was upset. Yeah. The ending is what's messing up my rating. Because the whole first, I'd say 2/3 of the book, I was very invested and I loved it. And I'm like, this might be a 5-star. And then the last bit lost me a little bit. And I can't decide on my rating.
I gave it a 4. I still gave it a 4. I tried to overcome the ending.
Yeah.
Because honestly, apart from the last, I don't know, chapter and a half or so, I was still at a 4 for me, a solid 4. Yeah. You know, not one of my favorite books, not a book that I'm like, you have to read this, you must. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did. I thought it was weird in a good way.
It reminded me a lot of Moon of the Crusted Snow. I don't know if you've read that one, but that's another really quiet, dystopian story where things are happening, but you're really only focused on this one element of it. So and I like that usually, but I'm not a big fan. I don't usually mind an ambiguous ending, but I needed just another chapter. I needed an epilogue or something.
I don't know. I felt like the pace of the book was consistent throughout until the end. And I felt because I don't know, I felt like I didn't even know what happened. I was reading the end really late. It wasn't recent. It was last week, but I still, I don't know. I remember flipping back. Did I miss what happened? There was something about the pacing as soon as she was kidnapped.
Yeah.
Where it just felt
really rushed.
Yeah. There was a lot of characters and a lot of things and the wall and this and that. And it was all new. But I feel like it was very, I don't know, I wasn't satisfied. It was all interesting. I mean, the fact that, Jesse was an OB and all of this stuff, was all very interesting, but then we just never interacted with them again. And I felt like we should have. I felt like there was a whole section here, and it's not a long book. I definitely didn't feel like I need this book to be over, I wasn't like, oh, this time was wasted in the quiet times. I felt like all of that had merit and worth and developed the story and the plot lines. I just felt like, I don't know. I felt like there was more in the story, and then she just stopped writing it.
I wonder if she'd planned on this being a series, and maybe there was going to be a sequel at some point, because I just feel like there's so much left unsaid that I almost wonder, was there meant to be another piece to this? I don't know.
But then I feel like you should have ended it right as you got kidnapped, or as you're waiting for this baby to be born.
That's true. Yeah. You know? So I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about it, because I don't know. This is the first time an ambiguous ending has really just left me feeling like, no, this is not right.
Exactly. Yeah. Because there is so much more. I feel like she should write a sequel anyway, even without the weird ending, because
there's a lot that I would like to see more of. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wish I had seen more of I did like how her not knowing and our not knowing coincided in a really realistic way, I thought.
Yes.
Of what is going on and who are these people and where are my loved ones and all of that.
Because that felt like that's how it would play out. I think realistically, we wouldn't know as much as we think we would. We're not going to know the details. So that felt realistic to me. But
I felt
also I want to know just a little bit of the details. I would have loved to find out, maybe in newspaper cuttings or something. Just give me a little bit more detail about what's happening behind the scenes.
Right. And if we don't know that, I still feel like the end should have been fleshed out more. Like these outward players, like her mother and Jesse and stuff. Like, why are we not giving the actual people involved more details going on out there? Like, why all this secrecy? Like they're going to somehow give it away to the people who are orchestrating the whole debacle. You know, like, I don't know. I felt like there was no reason to hide the ball there. So
no, I mean, I agree.
And I also thought did you feel like some of the characters shifted a little in who they were? Like, I thought Phil, I felt like
I'm still not sure how I'm supposed to feel about Phil. Like, I'm a little torn on what happened with his character, because am I supposed to be like mad at him for giving her up under torture? Because I can't be mad about that. I don't know who else out there wouldn't do the same thing. Like,
I thought it was weird that he turned into this, like,
for no reason. Sure, I'd be upset with that. But like being tortured, that's a different story.
I didn't like, though, how like when they have the scene in the car, like he's suddenly this person who's like, we can make a lot of money now. You know, like
that's true. I did find that a little bit off-putting, but it felt really out of character for him.
Yeah.
So like I'm not sure what she was doing there with his character. Like, am I supposed to not like him? Like, I don't know. That felt weird.
And there were certain places where I felt like it was too self-involved. Like the character herself was too self-involved. Like when she finds out that her dad is really her biological father, she has no concern about, she realizes that it's Sarah's insecurity, her mom's insecurity about not revealing it. But she doesn't have a conversation with her mom about this, or you know, like that kind of like, I mean, now you're not alone anymore. Like you can, like what is happening right now?
Like I really did like the format of the book, how it's like a journal that she's writing for her baby, and I think telling the story that way really works, because you get to hear it like almost as a history of like what happened to her and her family and how they got to this place. But yeah, I do feel like there was a lot left unsaid because of that. And I don't know. I wish we could have had like some like interludes or something to give us a little bit more background, that we could have gotten maybe even another perspective from somebody else on the outside. Like, that would have been interesting. There's just so many things I think could have made this book a 5-star, because I loved the writing so much.
I think the writing was great. I think the concept, like you said, of the journal was great. And the actual, like what's happening with evolution and the weirdness of it,
I found that really
super cool.
But they didn't do enough with it. Like, why is this happening? I want to see examples of it, because I feel like they were just talking like almost theoretically. And if this is really happening, I feel like they would have given some kind of information about that. Like, I don't know. I'm thinking in terms of like today's social media, like there would have been videos about this. There would have been like so many people like analyzing it. And I feel like either, I don't know, when was this written? Was this like, is this an older book? I didn't even look to see like how old is this book? Is this like pre-social media being a thing? Because I just felt like not enough information was happening. No, it's 2017, so.
I mean, Spencer's comment, there was a saber-toothed tiger in the tree with a lab, is like going to be my favorite comment of the year for all of the books.
That's true. Yeah. But like, I don't know. It just felt like almost they weren't telling us enough about what's happening.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even like when they changed the street signs and stuff, like I thought it was really interesting, those little things like into proverbs and things like that. But I mean, like, so who's taking over? Like, are there?
That was my big question. Who is in charge right now? Because this felt very similar to The Handmaid's Tale for me. Like the way it's just like things are just happening now, and you don't really know what's going on, but you know things are bad, but nobody's really sharing a lot, and it's just sort of happening. That's what it felt like to me. But also, I didn't really understand who this was. Like, who's in charge? Why are they doing this specifically? And like, why are people going along with it so easily? Because it really felt like not enough people were stopping it. So it must be everyone's in agreement here that we can change the street signs, that we can start rounding up pregnant women. So like, why? Who?
Yeah, how does it happen so seamlessly? Like that people are, when pregnant women are being taken out of like malls without any.
I feel like if that happened right now, I think more people would be like, wait a minute, let's do something about this. And there'd be protesting and there'd be like things happening.
Yeah.
And this just felt like, okay, I guess we're doing that. I don't know.
Like what happened? Like what is this end of everything that's coming? Like I felt like that could have been fleshed out better, because at the beginning, when she is in the real world and has access, I feel like that would have been the time to tell us more about what's happening. But the character herself seems remarkably unconcerned. Like remarkably unconcerned with what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, like she's just
and I'm like, if you're pregnant, I feel like you should be a little bit concerned.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Spencer. I didn't understand the whole mother thing. Like, what was that? Is that like the computer like watching her, and like what was that meant to be? I didn't really fully understand that.
Yeah, I would have liked a little bit more of that. It is the unsettling part, I agree. The fully plausible part is I do feel like a lot of people will wait to see how things play out until it's too late, you know? Like
I mean, people will go buy all the toilet paper and then sit at home and wait and see what happens. But like and I do feel like this sort of thing felt plausible, which is why I think it's so effective, because like it's not as outlandish as some other dystopian things that I've read.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, the reason it still made a 4 though is I thought that it was very realistic to me how she's just sort of like floating along. Like I feel like in this age of like where we have so much access to information, but also such filtered and gauzy information, you know, and like very directed into pockets of like echo chambers, that it would be weird. I mean, it's the extraordinary person who kind of like steps out of the receiving information step into like doing something with the information in a real way. So,
and I think
that felt very real to me.
The idea that, oh, this is only affecting pregnant women, so if it doesn't include me, I don't need to worry about it, and that kind of thing. Like, it's easy to hear something like that and then just pull yourself out of it because it doesn't affect you. So,
but then there was inconsistencies though, I felt like, in the characterization, like when she was pulling out her, like hiding things in the drywall and stuff. Maybe it's because I'm not handy. This would require a lot of effort on my part. But I was like, you seem to be thinking ahead, you know, like keeping like cigarettes and like alcohol and things that could be of value in like an apocalyptic situation. But at the same time, like you placed like baby purchases on a credit card, you know, like I would really like
there were some moments where she did things that I just thought were super out of character for her. Like, I'll just, open my front door and answer it and let everyone see my pregnant belly when I'm supposed to be in hiding. Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah, the mailman has to save me here.
So like, there was definitely several moments. And I was like, maybe it's prego brain. Maybe she's just not 100% thinking about it. But also like, if you had that much foresight to start hoarding and hiding things that were of value, maybe you should have enough foresight still to protect yourself better.
Yeah, early 20s brains, I agree. They are not solid yet. But I'm trying to think back to me at that age. I don't know that I would have had the foresight to like hide things in my house. So like those two pieces aren't gelling for me. And I also would have gone home. But I mean, everything she described sounded like she was close to her parents.
Yeah.
So her adoptive parents. I would have tried to be with someone, but I mean, I don't know.
It's such a weird thing to think about because, yeah, like I don't know that my 20-year-old brain, early 20s, I don't know that I could have been prepared enough for something like this to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That's why I would have gone home. I would have been like, I'm hungry. No. It was I don't know. I feel like all the post-apocalyptic books are tough for me in this era that we're in. You know, I'm sure a lot of people would say that, but I feel like really our information age makes it like particularly worrisome. You know, like every time I see like a post about like getting some sort of solar powered charging device, I'm like, do I need a solar powered charging device? Would my solar powered charging device work? Like,
it's definitely anxiety inducing, like worrying about like, well, how realistic is this scenario? And should I start planning for things just in case? And like, I do like to read dystopian a lot. And I like this kind of story. But yeah, it definitely takes on a different tone when you have to start thinking in terms of like, would this happen? Could this happen? And this book did feel, I mean, not necessarily the de-evolution part of it, but just the way things played out. I think it felt relatively realistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hated that scene she described where as a pregnant person, she had to roll under that like tight, like space, like where the boulder was above you, you know? I mean, I'm not spelunking anytime soon anyway, but like, that's like my nightmare.
Yeah.
But the idea of being pregnant and having to wedge yourself through rocks.
No,
yeah.
I am not agile in the best of times, but I'm definitely not agile enough for that pregnant. No.
Yeah, sounds like my nightmare. I want to live through de-evolution.
I'm very curious about what that actually looks like. I really would love to have more information on that because like that part of the story I thought would have been the most interesting and we got very little of it. And I want to know more.
It was just tastes of what she was seeing. And also the speed at which that was happening scientifically would be weird. Like what happened? Like was it random? And then what was happening to babies, you know? Like the abnormal babies, like what did they have, you know?
And like I wonder how much of that would be like people trying to debunk it and saying this isn't really happening and this is why, and just like how much of that would have been happening even when it's right in their face, like a saber-toothed tiger in a tree. Like how much of that would just like people wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, I love like those videos where, you know, paleontologists are like, birds are dinosaurs. We are having like an arbitrary distinction between birds and dinosaurs. I'm like, that's a different way of thinking of things. But it also explains why I'm afraid of like roosters. So, like, if you ever had one chase you, I'm like, this seems very raptor-esque.
Yeah, I agree with that. There'd just be so much misinformation, and that I think would lend to the confusion and people not acting, and I don't know. It's hard not to visualize it in terms of what things are like right now. Because did this ever say like, when is this happening? Is this in the future? I don't think that was ever.
It didn't feel like the future. It felt like contemporary.
It felt like it was now.
Cars and things. Yeah. And malls and all that sounded very now.
Yeah.
The way people were dressed.
Yeah, I don't know. That was a definite, like, I think that people would have said something when the cops start taking the pregnant women away. But like also maybe they wouldn't. Maybe that would just happen. Like how observant are we really to what's happening right around us?
If the story is that it's for their protection, for the protection of their unborn children.
Because really like they weren't really telling anybody like why they were being taken away, what was happening to them. It was just happening.
Yeah. people. Yeah,
Definitely.
that's true too.
Yeah.
There was like an exercise I read about as a middle school thing because it's October, so I'm like looking at Salem witch trial, like lesson plans and things like that. And it's like if you have a classroom of kids, apparently you just tell them all like, I'm going to go around, I'm going to tell each one of you whether you're a witch or an ordinary person, and you don't tell anybody else, but all of you have to like, kind of figure it out amongst yourselves, like who a witch might be, and the lesson is that everyone always ends up forming these like groups and factions, and they all like accuse certain people, and this like crowd hysteria kind of thing happens, and like actually no one was told that they were a witch at all, like 0 people, like everyone was told that they were an ordinary person, but they're in this position where everyone thinks there's has to be somebody, so they pick like 2 or 3 arbitrary people that seem even slightly suspicious, and the rest of the groups kind of hone in on them. I think that's a real thing that happens.
Oh, that's definitely a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever societal change
we left
happens.
to other people.
Makes us feel safe. As long as we're not in that group. We're inside our wall. We're in our little walled city.
Yeah. And it would probably be easy to go, well, even if I am pregnant, I'm not one of those pregnant people.
Yeah, my baby's fine. Everything's good. I don't know what line it is from The Mist, but I'm waiting.
Yeah, now I'm sitting here thinking, okay, wait, I've read The Mist. I don't remember though. Yeah. But yeah, I remember how like those factions started forming in that story too. So yeah, I mean that's all very realistic.
I think that whenever there is something happening that people don't understand, there's this need to like set somebody up as an authority. Like whoever's the loudest voice sometimes, whoever's the most organized. I wonder how it would go down,
Yeah.
Like,
I definitely think the fact that it was some sort of a religious organization taking over, that feels real. Like I could see that.
Religion is very comforting at times like this.
Yeah. Especially if like the de-evolution thing, it would be very easy to just like start listening to the authority of the church because they must know, like this is their territory.
And it's sort of saying implicitly that everything that progress has engendered is like bad, right?
Yeah.
Like somehow like the divine powers that be are saying that we should go back to simpler times.
Yeah. Gosh, that would have been so much more interesting though. I keep thinking like I wish there had been more of that. Like because there's so many different tangents you could go down focusing on what the de-evolution looks like and all of that.
I think it would have been interesting to do this book from 2 different points of view, like maybe at least 2, so that someone on the outside could be working towards, even if it was her mom and her, I think that would have made sense for like,
because I feel like her mother was on the outside and maybe did know more things, and she just wasn't sharing because she didn't want to upset Cedar when she was pregnant. And like I understand that, but I would have loved to know like what was going on out there.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in an atmosphere like this, it feels like there would definitely be violence.
Experience, but yeah.
But she herself, I will say one thing that kind of threw me off at the beginning of the book is in that whole period where she's going to the reservation to find her birth parents and stuff, she just didn't seem like a very nice person. And I was like, that could be chalked up to being young and being like, very resentful of like this whole mission. And I get that. But also I was like, surely you could be a little bit like more compassionate to this person who like reached out to you, who keeps trying to be kind.
A lot of stuff I think that they could have added to this story that would have just made it like a little bit better.
Yeah, like, is there a difference between what they do with boy children versus girl children who are
Yes,
taken?
like that's
Things
something
like
that I
that.
hadn't even thought of, but yeah.
So,
And like if a baby is born healthy and normal, what happens to it? Because like
what
I
if it's
need to know
not
what
healthy and
happened to her
normal?
child. Like
Yeah,
I would have
exactly.
loved just a smidge more at the end because I really want to know what happened. Like, do they get reunited at any point?
Yeah, she felt, and I mean, it is traumatic, this whole experience for sure. Like, but
Yeah,
I feel like her urgency sort of disappeared once she got kidnapped, you know?
it did. It
It
almost
sort
felt
of,
like she was relieved, almost like, okay, now we
mhm,
can do this. And like,
exactly. Yeah,
I don't
done.
know. I'm not sure that's how I would have felt in that moment, but I don't know.
Yeah. I
I
liked
mean,
her writing though. I
I
think
liked
I
her
would
writing
read.
enough that I think I
Yeah,
might be willing to try something else that isn't
yeah,
dystopian. Like I have a couple of her books.
yeah.
I think I have what, The Roundhouse and Love
Mhm,
Medicine on my shelves that I've been meaning to get to. So I think I would do one
mhm.
more and see how I feel about that kind of storytelling. But because I think this might be her like only
Dystopian.
story that's dystopian. Yeah.
Yeah. Dystopian is hard to do, I think, well in terms of an ending.
Yeah.
It's, because it's all unknowns. There's so many questions we always have. I just thought that this story concept was so interesting that
Hmm.
it was weird to see her not do much with the actual like idea of what is happening in this dystopia, you know?
Yeah.
It was so internalized, like the experience that we get. So
And like I've read books
yeah.
where we don't really get a lot of that and it still worked. Like Moon of the Crusted Snow is a very good example of that, where it worked really well, but you didn't really know what was happening. You only got the isolation of this group of people living on a reservation and like
Mm-hmm.
experiencing what was happening, but also isolating themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that worked really well, where you don't ever really get to know much about what was happening on the outside,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't feel necessary to know that within the realm of that story. But with this one, I feel like she kept dipping her toes into what was happening, but then like
Yeah.
not really. So I feel like it was either you either need to go all the way in and talk about it, or you need to stay out of that altogether and just focus on the
Mm-hmm.
internal, like this is what's happening to this small group. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I felt like there would have been more said realistically. That's
Hmm.
the part that felt not real. Like when she goes to the reservation and she's with her mom and her birth parents and stuff, I feel like there would have been more discussion amongst these people of like what next steps were and what was going on and like what they thought was coming down the pike and like
Yeah.
that kind of so
Oh yeah, I haven't read Moon of the Turning Leaves yet. I almost don't want to because I liked the first book so much. I don't want to mess with the story, but I might have to check that out. I couldn't find any like specific discussion questions for this one,
for this book.
so
Yeah.
that doesn't seem to be a thing. But yeah, like what have we not talked about? Like, are there any what characters that felt like stand out for you?
I thought the character she was with in the hospital was really interesting. The one who didn't
Yes,
talk to
I
her.
really liked
Yeah.
her, and I wish we could have
Yeah.
gotten a little more time with her because I thought she was just really interesting, like
Mhm.
very prepared for every scenario.
Yeah. And intent on getting herself out.
Hmm. I thought the scene where she started talking was just really fun. Like all of a sudden, it
Yeah.
like
Some help here?
yeah, it's like oh,
Yeah.
so she can speak.
Yeah. That was very interesting. Yeah, I agree. I
Hmm.
wish I had had more about because especially at the beginning, there is so many family dynamics at play We are going to have an internal book, right, about her experience and everything. And finding her birth parents certainly is a big cataclysmic thing in anyone's life. Like, I feel like I wish I had had more of the relationship between these characters and some curiosity on her part about them. Like, I felt like the curiosity that she had for her parents, all four of them, like, you know, their experience, like all three of them in this book, I guess, was missing. You know, like, if you are going to be so internalized, then I felt like we should see more development of that and maybe learn more about the outside world through that, you know? Like,
yeah.
So a lot of it felt like it was happening to her, and I get that a lot of it she was like, you know, like actually imprisoned, but like there were parts where she wasn't, and I felt like the agency didn't emerge. So if she had had more agency, maybe we could have learned more. You know, like her curiosity piece was missing for me. So,
which was interesting because there were some like moments where she's journaling and talking about like her curiosity about the de-evolution stuff, and then everything else was just sort of, I guess we're here now. I guess.
And she's a writer, right?
Yeah.
So she's writing these theological pieces. I mean, I would think that she would be telling us more about at least Mother, and like,
I'm still like, I want to know more about what that was, because I was so confused by that. Like, I get that it's some kind of surveillance, but like, how did that work? And why does it know so much about everybody? And how are they tracking? And also that scene where she's in the hospital early on and gets her ultrasound, and then the doctor like makes her leave. Like, what was that? Like, what did he know? Like, what was he able to see from that made him do that? Like,
is it just seeing a normal pregnancy? I couldn't figure out whether they were seeing a normal pregnancy or not.
I don't know. That's the part that I'm like, either something's very wrong or something's not wrong at all, and I don't know which one it is. And I guess we're not supposed to know until the end, but even at the end we don't know. So I don't know. I was very curious about that, and I just assumed it was going to lead to more.
Yeah, there were unanswered questions.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, that if it's a human baby, that she doesn't need to be in the hospital.
I knew what the other ones were.
But
like, what else is he getting? It's an OB clinic. Like, what else is he seeing in there? You know, who are all the other women who are not getting like hustled out the back?
Yeah.
Like, are they taking those women too? I mean,
and like, I wondered too, like, see, I don't know. I kept thinking like, okay, well, is this like a Handmaid's Tale scenario where they're going to like take the babies away from them and raise them, and then like, I don't know, breed the ones that are healthy and normal and see if they can continue breeding them?
Well, it seemed like that by the end, right? Because they said they were taking just women of childbearing age now.
And they were like paying people to have babies and see what happens and that kind of thing. So like, I don't know.
It was weird. It was weird. It was
like, it did feel to me like almost like the author read Handmaid's Tale and was like, oh, I have other ideas, and then wrote her version of that. But yeah, I don't know. There were just so many different directions the story could have gone and didn't. Oh, I can see that. I don't have time for a reading slump. I have to force through whatever. But yeah, I can see this like throwing me into a slump because I'm just like frustrated. I wanted a better ending. It had such potential.
It did. It did. I mean, like, as soon as she starts seeing, like, you know, the saber-tooth tiger and the pterodactyl like bird and things like that, I was like, this is gonna be awesome. Like, what is happening here?
Like, that got me really excited. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, this book is so good. But yeah,
because when they were gonna escape, I was like, I thought the next scene was gonna be like somehow them like making that trek, you know, like to get to Canada or wherever they were going. And like I was like, what are they going to see out there? Like I bet we're going to see a whole bunch more stuff,
Yeah,
and like that
definitely
I felt like we were,
would happen too.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that would have been a good decision. Yeah, exactly. Seeing all the koi animals and just like what was out there and what was happening to people. And then maybe she could have gotten, taken, or that, like that way there would have been some external exposure.
So. And like, I feel like too, with the babies that were being born, like, what does that actually look like? Because were they actually birthing live, de-evolved humans? Like, was that what was happening, or were they just dying at birth? That's the part that like no one was really explaining very well, and I wasn't sure I understood. Like, I guess some people,
I thought it was a weird choice. Yeah, it was a weird choice to have the mute friend have a totally normal baby. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, that would have been an opportunity to see something,
right? Like, I thought for sure that was what was going to happen, and then it didn't, and I was like, oh, so
this was just sad.
Where is this happening?
Yeah.
I would have, like, if you're in the hospital and people around you are giving birth, like, I would have loved to have gotten to see, like, what actually does that look like? Like, how does this work? I want to see that scenario play out. And then what happens to those babies? Like, if they survive, do we just raise them? And, like, what happens to them? Like, no one really went into that, and no one was even thinking about what that looks like.
Yeah, but then if the pregnant women were dying, right, because of the actual size and stuff.
Yeah.
In delivery, that shouldn't matter, because in these hospital environments, they should be able to do like C-sections.
Right? Like, okay, cool. The baby's too big.
Yeah.
C-sections work. Like,
exactly. And then if it can't grow, I still feel like you would have been hearing about that, right? Like pregnant women randomly dying. I don't know. Yeah.
So yeah, it just felt weird to me, because like, if the baby doesn't fit right through the birth canal, then you just have a C-section. But like, it would still grow in the womb. Like, there's a lot of room in there. I had twins, and there was a lot of space. So like, I don't know. I was very curious about all of that, and I was hoping to get more information.
Yeah, same. Were twins a surprise to you? Do you have twins in your family?
I technically have twins in my family, but none of them survived because my grandmother kept miscarrying them. But she had like, I want to say 3 sets of twins, and miscarried all 3 of them. So, and she always said it was because she was tiny, but I'm the same size she was. So I don't know if it was that, but yeah. So I was always told it skips every other generation, so it would be my turn. And I didn't believe it until it happened, but
they're filling all of the It does seem to skip a generation. I don't know if we know why that happens.
Yeah, I don't know. And like, some people just seem to be more likely to have twins. Like, I remember when Robbie and Riley were first born, I joined like a twin mom group, and there was a woman in that group who had 4 sets of identical twins.
What?
And I was like, after the 2nd set, I'd be out. Like, I'm good now. But 4 sets. And I was just like, why? That's a lot of babies.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Her OB must be like, I hope he wrote a paper.
Like, I didn't even think that was possible, but like, that was wild to me.
I don't think we have any twins on either side. So.
Okay, is there anything else we want to say about the story that we might not have touched on yet? I think I covered everything I wrote in my notes. Like, I liked this. I would have liked to see more things, but this wasn't a bad book for me at all. Like,
I think it, I mean, like, I'm thinking about my 4. Like maybe it's a 3.75. I mean, it's staying at a 4 though. I don't know. The only thing that would knock it is really that ending. And I feel like I'm willing to give her a pass on the ending because I thought the concept was so cool.
Yeah, it was a really interesting concept. Like, it's not something I'd seen done before in this specific way with the de-evolution of everything. So that I thought was intriguing. And like, I really liked her writing. Like, I was mostly listening to the audio, but I was going back and forth in the book. So like, I didn't tab everything, but while I had the book out, like I was tabbing lines and things that I just thought were especially interesting or beautiful. So like, I definitely want to read something else and see what I think. Because
I'll definitely read another adult book by her just to see whether, because I thought she did have really interesting insights about interpersonal relationships and like people. And
I think
like
that's
those little
kind of
moments.
all her books focus on. She writes a lot of stories that are about like family relationships and dynamics. So like, I
wish I'd had more there. There was so much story behind that family that I feel like, I think for me, it was the fact that the character herself was not curious enough to like delve into it, like what other people's experiences might be in this moment, you know?
Yeah. So. Especially being a writer, and like that alone should have made her wonder more and want to like write about that and maybe try to interview somebody else who's been through this and like find out what their experiences have been like. I don't know. Like, there was so much that she could have done here, but I don't know. I wonder what made the cutting, like when she was editing this, like what got left out. Were there scenes that might have belonged in the book after all? Like, I wonder. I don't know.
I mean, there is that pervasive feeling of dread from not knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
That lingered for a long time. But then, like you said, if you're going to do that, then I need the ending to be better or the community to be more insular. Yeah. So.
Like, it can definitely work. I just, this was missing something. And I don't know. I'm not creative enough to like figure out an ending for this one. But I definitely wish that I knew at least a little bit about what happened to the baby.
It disappears.
Yeah, because I don't know, that would have sent me into a panic. Like, I wouldn't have been okay with that. And she felt like she was sort of just like, yeah, okay, well, I have this journal for you. Someday I'll be able to share it. And I was like, no, like, I need to know where my baby is.
I don't think you're going to be able to share it. Yeah, exactly.
No, like,
unless you do something now. No.
Yeah.
What's coming up next?
Okay, well, we are going to read The God of Endings this month by Jacqueline Holland. This one's been on my TBR for a while. Like, I've just been really, really curious about it. When did this come out? Did I pre-order this? I don't know. Yeah, this came out last year. And I've just been really intrigued by the concept of that story. Like, I read, what is it called? I keep forgetting the name of it. Addie LaRue, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Yeah, I read that when it came out, and there were elements of that I really, really loved. And I've been wanting to find something like that, but better.
That book was interesting because that was the first book by V. Schwab that I read. And because it was famous and whatever. I read a whole bunch of books I hadn't liked. And so when I read that, it was at the right point for me to give it a high rating. I was like, oh,
and I did too. I think I gave it 5 stars right after I finished it. But it's one of those books, and I think this is just indicative of V.E. Schwab's writing for me. Her writing is really forgettable. Everything I've read from her, I like initially liked it, and then it's just gone. I can't think about the plot.
My thing is, I felt
none of that sticks for me. So
I felt like this book was very different in writing style than a lot of her other books.
It was.
I liked her other books better, like the books I read later, because I felt like I just liked that other voice better. I felt like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue really hit like, you know, a popular type of tone of the moment.
Yeah.
You know?
And like there was stuff in there that I really loved. Like I love the concept of like everyone forgetting who she is and her just like having to live this incredibly long life alone and like then finally finding someone who remembers her. Like I loved that.
Yeah.
So I've been wanting to find something kind of similar in tone to that. And then I think that's what really jumped out at me about The God of Endings is that it's another immortal, but they're a vampire and like reflecting back on this long life. So I'm really curious to see if this one sticks better for me. So plus I'm always looking for vampire books that I like because I find for me, I love the concept of vampires. Like vampires are one of my favorite like monsters, but I've not found that many like vampire media that I actually like. So I'm always looking.
It's
so like maybe this will be the one.
I feel like a lot of them are very tropey, and
it gets too
fail to acknowledge how hard it must be.
Like, there's so much scope there, and like, I don't know. I want to find the right vampire book for me, so I keep trying things, and I'm hoping this is the one. So that's what we're reading for our October book, and this is our last book of the year. We end in October because I don't know. I have just too much going on November, December. I don't want to have one more thing on my plate. So we wrap for the year with this book and then we'll be back in January. But yeah, hopefully people will pick this up with us and read and have our last book club in November. I haven't even looked at the calendar yet. I don't know what date. Oh, that actually works pretty well. November 2nd is the first Saturday. So
yeah, I'm free.
So we can do that. So November 2nd would be our next book club. And our last one for 2024. So.
And it's a good title for the last one.
It is, I think. Like I'm always trying to figure out, like I want something spooky-ish in October, but like I don't like to pick something too scary because then I know not everyone wants to read that. But I feel like this is a pretty good balance of like literary with a little bit of like more horror undertone.
Pizzazz. Yeah.
Like it's got a little, but I don't think this is like, scary at all because I don't think that's where they're going with this book. So yeah, I'll get that in the Discord later for people who want to start reading now. I don't know. I have so much middle grade to read this month. I don't know. I'm going to start that towards the end of the month so that I can really focus on it right before book club.
I'm on an Ursula Vernon kick right now. She writes, I don't know if you've ever read any of her.
I don't think so.
I think she has I think that's her real name and her pen name is Kingfisher or maybe, I don't know. I always forget when people have like multiple pen names. I can't hold on to who they are. But she writes this great little hamster series about a hamster princess. And I read it with my youngest. And yeah, she writes under T. Kingfisher. But yeah, she writes a hamster princess series.
T. Kingfisher before. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's her. So
I didn't realize she had so many pen names.
Yeah, I think her actual name is Ursula Vernon.
I think, but I didn't know what else she wrote under. Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan. It's a very empowered little hamster princess, and she retells a lot of the fairy tales, and you know, like they're very fun to read aloud if you have a little person in your house.
Oh, I don't anymore. My little person is too opinionated now.
Yeah. But all right, well, we will see you guys back on November 2nd at 1 p.m. Eastern time.
Yep. So looking forward to that and our last book club of the year. So thank you for coming and hanging out today and chatting about the Future Home of the Living God with us. And we will see you guys next time. Happy reading. Bye.
Bye.